where is the platform, a help or a hindrance, or does it really matter? Because there's so many of
Oh,
them,
of
and some of
course.
them are even bespoke, depending
Yeah.
on which company and how much money
Mhm.
they have.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, different platforms are being used for different things. I think that's the challenge that we're in now is, trying to keep up with all these platforms, trying to figure out who's going to be sticking around for a while, because there's a big investment. There's a big learning curve, for your production folks, for the end users, making sure that it's a good product, making sure also too that those products, interpolate easily between mobile devices, desktop, and where the people are out, in the world moving about, right? That end audience that you're trying to go after. So, I mean, there's obviously some heavy players that we tend to lean towards, but at least for our world, a lot of it is determined by the time we get there, right? A lot of times the corporate stuff, education, nonprofits already have a plan in place. And so it's kind of working within that model to help them deliver the best results for their particular event.
Yeah. And Alex, what's your take on that?
I think the problem with most of the platforms is they're throwing the ball to where the receiver not even is, but was a long time ago. So they're trying to reproduce physical events inside of virtual events, and it just doesn't work. And so the thing is that, for instance, when you're doing a purely virtual event, there's no reason to have multiple tracks. Like, you don't have, why are we creating FOMO for all these people to have 8 tracks at the same time? So all these platforms are built around something that we don't need anymore, and so we can have all the smaller events happening over a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then have the main events, happening in person if we want to. And so the thing is that there's not really any reason why we're doing, there's a story of a family that always cuts the end of the roast off, to put, and then they cook it. And
Right.
they ask the grandmother, why do you do that? Because everyone was asking, she's like, my pot wasn't big enough. And so the thing is that we made all these rules about physical events or how we do events because of physical events, because we had to get everybody in one place. We didn't have, for thousands of years, we didn't have video. I know it sounds crazy. And so we had to get everybody in one place. And to do that, we might as well talk about a bunch of things all at one time, because they paid for travel and they have a hotel room and they have all those things. And so there's all these constraints of the physical world that we're weighting down our virtual events with, when we get out of that and say, well, we can have an event that happens for 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever it is, and culminate in a physical event or start in a physical event, but it doesn't have to be all there, and when we do that, we can have a lot more people, because the real power is interactivity. When we start interacting with the audience, when you want to see average view time and sequential attendance and all the important numbers, not the useless numbers are kind of like reach and concurrent views and total views and all those silly things. And so the thing is that when you want to talk about like average view time and sequential attendance, what you're talking about is interaction. Like, how do we ask questions? How do we interact with the audience directly? Yeah.
Now, Dan had a question. Barge in.
Well,
Dan.
not a question, but I love what Alex is saying. And I think it is interesting, because I'm thinking back to conferences that I've gone to in person, right? And I'm thinking, well, wait a second, they never do any interaction at these conferences, right? So I think it's
they weren't a good idea back then. Like we've been, I've spoken at a lot of conferences, and I get up and my plan is to speak for 10 minutes and then answer questions. And it has worked for 20 years. It's not, and it works in person. It works, and we tell everyone when we're talking about events is flip that switch and because what happens is you want to get people out of passive listening and into active listening as fast as you can. And the best way to do that is to answer their questions.
And one of the masters at that is Leo Laporte, right? Leo Laporte
I was on a show with Leo earlier today.
I saw that post. Yeah. I mean, he's been great at, he can do a whole show. It's like, Leo, how are you on air 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
And it's driven by the audience, right? And I mean, it's a brilliant way to, conduct your meetings and to really get at what people are wanting and needing.
Yeah.